All right. Hey, good evening. Guess what? It's 8 o'clock in the Eastern Standard Time. It's 9 o'clock Guyana time. And it's time to rock and roll right here on 107.1 FM. We have a packed program tonight. Uh, Packed program. Don't forget, we have uh, coming up, yes, the leader of the opposition is with us this evening. And then we have Reverend Fred Davie. He's with us also. A busy guy. He has just wrapped up a function at the White House, and so we will be joined by him just around maybe closer to 8:20, 8:25 or something like that. So we do have a packed night tonight for you guys. Lincoln Lewis is also with us. We want to talk with Lincoln. Lots of things we got to talk about. So share the link, guys. We'll be right back with Straight Up.
She put a pot on she hair and gone. Them a the first one out on the dam. Basket on she head, bucket in each hand. Hold up on she frock, I wanna she grandson. To the market, them a go. For the morning, the day is dawning. For cock-a-crow to give the villagers a warning. Rise and shine, the birds them a sing. All animal take turn as them join in the waking. Cock-a-crow, dagaba, donkey, bray, horse, and they even duck-a-qua. Cock-a-crow, dagaba, donkey, bray, horse, and they even duck-a-qua. Come and hear this sweet story that tell the people about life in the country. All day a back down, me now a come home. Inaga jackass yard for fetch a load. Cockle shy hand, bag over shoulder, running by his side. A Rexy and Rover from the farm, them a come. Sun a go down but up the river. Some washing clothes, some folks are bathing at the water. Fisherman, they catch them a bring. From a canoe boat, man, them start offloading. Aymara, Kwakwari, Hail Baka Kuma Kuma, even Lokonani. Aymara, Kwakwari, Hail Baka Kuma Kuma, even Banga Mary. Listen to this sweet story that tell the people about life in the country. Them children glad when the weekend come. Out in the yard, them all gather round. Some a play catcher, some making house from straw. Two who come later, a grandma or grandpa. All a sit down just a wait. Moonlight so bright, it's just the right time to listen story or to say a little nursery rhyme. Grandpa voice a echo in the night as he tell it tell some picnic a there with fright. Oh Ligan, Mungeza, Massa Kurma Burra Nancy even Watamuma. Oh Ligan, Mungeza, Massa Kurma Burra Nancy even Watamuma.
This is attorney Shellen Washington, owner and founder of the Washington Law Firm located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you, so call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100. 3100.
It's an eco-friendly Christmas. The Guyana Public Service Cooperative Credit Union is pleased to present our annual Christmas promotion, commencing November 1st, 2021 and concludes December 17, 2021. The credit union recognizes and acknowledges the importance of minimizing our carbon footprint and has tailored this year's promotion to suit by presenting our members with an electric car and bikes, which will undoubtedly raise awareness and help our members to adopt. To participate, one must be a member of the Guyana Public Service Cooperative Credit Union, must like and follow the credit union's Facebook page, must have an existing loan with the credit union, must be in good standing with the credit union, must not be an immediate family member of any staff or committee member, must earn a gross of less than $150,000 monthly, and proof of this fact must be attached. And only one coupon is allowed per member. It's an eco-friendly Christmas.
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!
If you are looking to have your statutory declaration, affidavit of income, identity, damage or lost passport, lost license, tenancy agreement, agreement of settlement, power of attorney, last will and testament, and certification of documents, then you need to visit the Alistair Collins firm, located at the Killian Mall, 162 Lamaha Street in Georgetown, between Camp and Waterloo Street. Alistair Collins is a commissioner of oaths and a justice of the peace. Make certain you visit him or call for more information at 649-6410 or 685-6448 or 503-1451. And there's adequate parking available. Go down to the Alistair Collins firm and have all of your legal issues settled and brought to the fore. Alistair Collins firm. Contact them at Alistair Collins firm.
All right. Hey, guess what? Good evening. My name is Mark Benchap. Welcome to Straight Up on 107.1 FM. Do share the link and let folks know that we are on. Okay? Great. That we are on. We have our guest. In fact, we have Lincoln Lewis with us. We also have the Reverend Fred Davie. He is the U.S. Commissioner on International Religious Freedom, and he was actually appointed by President Biden. So we want to hear a little bit about him. We're going to talk about religious freedom around the world, and you'll get to hear a little bit about the Honorable Reverend that is on with us. He's also the chair of the Civilian Complaint Review Board of New York City. Oh, yeah. You know, I think maybe we should just, we have Lincoln. Lincoln wants to talk about some issues, serious issues happening in Guyana, right? Some serious issues happening in Guyana, as we would say, right? Good evening to all of you, and welcome to Straight Up. We're going to rock and roll this evening. Don't forget, coming up just a little after 8:30, we have the leader of the opposition. Yes, he is going to be with us too this evening. So it is a packed night. Share the link. Some serious stuff we are going to be discussing here this evening. So here is what we're going to do. The Reverend, the Honorable Reverend, just came out of the White House. You know, the street, what is it called? It's called the, my gosh, I almost forgot. Look at it. Look at what's happening at the White House there. And that's the Honorable Reverend. He was out there today, up close and personal, right there at the White House. Let's get to the Reverend. Let's find out what's going on. Good evening and welcome to this show, Reverend Davie. How are you? Thank you. Good. It's good to be here. And I apologize for the lighting. I'm in the airport lounge at Washington Reagan. You did say that you would have been there because you had that important function at the White House this evening where you witnessed, I'm sure, not for the first time, but you were right there up close and personal. How was the evening like at the White House, Reverend? It was very nice, very festive. It was really great to be there. It's great to be back in person.
I'd been there in June for an event, which we did in the East Room, and it was nice to be outside with, with really a nice group of people celebrating Christmas, celebrating the start of Christmas with entertainment, Patti LaBelle, LL Cool J, among the crowd there, among the entertainers, and of course the president and Mrs. Biden and the vice president, the first gentleman. So it was a great night to be out there, and I was really pleased and honored to have been invited.
You know what? The next time you're going to be going there, Reverend, just take me along with you. I'll be your bag guy. I'll be that bag guy. I'll fit your briefcase for you. You know.
No.
Here's what I want to do briefly.
Sure.
You are the U.S. Commissioner on International Religious Freedom, and you were appointed by the president himself, Joe Biden. Explain to our listeners what exactly is that position entails. Your duty.
Right. So there are 9 of us. It's a bipartisan commission, Democrats and Republicans. It was established in 1998 by legislation of Congress, the International Religious Freedom Act, to advise the president, the State Department, and the Congress on international religious freedom as it relates to U.S. foreign policy. We monitor countries' performance in allowing people to believe or not to believe what they believe, and then report back to those 3 entities, the President, State Department, and the White House, and the Congress, on whether or not nations around the world are allowing their people to actually worship as they please. And we want to keep it front and center because a lot of the persecution that happens around the world is as much religious as it is political. And even within religions, for example, there are some Islamic countries where there are minority Islamic beliefs or humanists who are formally Muslim, and even in those countries, you'll have one particular religious expression of Islam denying the opportunity for another particular expression of Islam to have it to worship the way it will. It's also true of other religious minority groups in other countries as well. So we try to monitor that. We're mandated by Congress to make reports on what we learn, and then to work again with Congress, the State Department, and the White House to make sure that U.S. foreign policy takes into account how the country is treating its people when it comes to belief or no belief, as it may be.
All right. If you're now joining us, we have the Reverend Fred Davie here with us this evening. He is the U.S. Commissioner on International Religious Freedom, and he was appointed by President Joseph Biden. Not only that, he's also the chair of the Civilian Complaint Review Board in New York City. We'll touch a little bit about that briefly. But before we do, how often do you guys report to the president on what your findings around the world?
So pretty much on a regular basis, because, our responsibility is to monitor countries. There's a lot of countries around the world. And so we produce reports, updates on a monthly basis. And we share those with the White House, with the State Department, with Congress. And then once a year, we encourage the State Department to either put countries that put the worst offenders who deny religious freedom on a list called the countries of particular concern. And in that, we ask the State Department to use the powers of diplomacy as well as the powers of the U.S. government to encourage the bad actors to improve upon the ways in which they treat their citizens with regard to religious freedom. For those actors who are borderline, we have a special watch list where we encourage the State Department to put those countries on a special watch list and to monitor how they are treating their citizens when it comes to religious expression. And we do that on a regular basis. Countries go on and off those lists. We really want to work with countries to get them off either the countries of particular concern list or the special watch list, because we believe all countries ultimately should allow their citizens the freedom to worship as they will.
You know, Reverend, I'm glad that you've mentioned that in terms of monitoring the countries around the world in terms of how they treat their citizens and allowing them to worship or not to worship. But here it is, there's a situation in Russia. And this is not just an isolated situation. This gentleman happens to be a dual citizen for Russia and also Guyana. He has been there along with others for months now. He has a trial coming up sometime January 20th. I'm sure this case of Mr. Sean Pike was brought to your attention. Your take, sir.
Yeah, it was. And we have brought it to the attention of the appropriate people within the U.S. government. So there are a couple of things on this. One, Russia is listed by the State Department as one of the worst actors when it comes to denying people their religious freedom. We applauded that just recently. The State Department redesignated Russia as a country of particular concern just a few weeks ago. And the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom applauded the government doing that. As I said, this gentleman is on the radar of the State Department and others who can monitor and assist in his situation. But as you know, we have to be delicate in how we do that, because sometimes too much attention can have a detrimental impact when trying to negotiate the release of someone who has been unjustly imprisoned. So Russia has a really notorious history when it comes to these issues of religious freedom. This is another example of it. And there is diplomatic work afoot to try to address the situation of this particular person.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. If you are now joining us, we have the Reverend with us, Reverend Fred Davie. Some of you might be wondering, yeah, he is indeed a powerful guy, not just a powerful man of God, but politically. Give us a brief background. I know you're originally from North Carolina. You attended the university there. You also attended Yale University and all of these fancy schools. Give us a brief background of yourself, sir.
Thank you. So I appreciate that. I grew up at the very edge of the civil rights movement, very much a part of my DNA. And I entered college and then ultimately Yale Divinity School with that as a part of my spirit. I came to New York and had a great mentor in the late Reverend Dr. Calvin Presley. And he introduced me to New York City and to both the social service structure in the city, but also the political and governmental structure, as well as the philanthropic structure. And over the last almost 40 years, that's the avenue that my career has pursued. I've done a lot of work in nonprofit management. I've done a lot of work in philanthropy. I've done a lot of work in government. And I've tried to always include churches and faith-based organizations in the work that I do. I'm an ordained Presbyterian minister. And though I've never served the church, I was actually ordained to work in the nonprofit sphere, which I've done for these number of years. Along the way, I met our current mayor. We both worked for Mayor Dinkins. He had a more powerful position than I did, although we were both young men then. And I actually performed the wedding.
I actually got you there. Look.
Oh, there we are. There's the late Mayor Dinkins. It makes my heart both happy and somewhat sad to see him. But he was a great mayor and never received, I think, the sufficient credit that he did. But I should tell you that particular photo was taken at a celebration at City Hall, where we were having the 30th anniversary of the formation of an all-civilian complaint review board, which Mayor Dinkins did. And I'm chair now, was chair when we did that celebration. And it was so wonderful to welcome the mayor. I was there at City Hall when the Civilian Complaint Review Board, as is currently structured, was put into place by Mayor Dinkins. And then here I am, 30 years later, chairing this board. The current mayor, as I said, and I worked there. We stayed in touch over the years, he and his wife. And I actually performed Mayor de Blasio and Shirlene McRae's wedding in Prospect Park in 1994, I think it was. So I stayed in touch. And then when Mayor de Blasio became mayor, we talked, and first the request was that I become a board member of the Civilian Complaint Review Board that I did. And then a year after being a board member, I was asked to chair. And so I've been chairing since 2017. I've announced to the mayor-elect that I will step down in January. But I'm honored to have just been invited by the mayor-elect Eric Adams to join his public safety and justice transition team. And we have transition committee rather, and we have our first meeting tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to that. So
you know what? You have a packed schedule. You are a busy man, and I just want to salute you, commend you for your wonderful works that you have been doing. You have been fighting for prison reform and all of these different things you have been doing.
Thank you.
And I kind of like. I know you were sad when Dinkins was not reelected
Yes.
back then.
Yes, I was very
Having been
sad.
the first Black mayor of the city.
Absolutely. No, and I went to work for Ruth Messenger as deputy borough president of Manhattan to try to get her elected, and unfortunately, things didn't quite fall our way. But never, you never give up the fight. I had, and along the way, I got to know the Senator Obama and his staff, and worked on his campaign. Actually, volunteered on the campaign, and then that picture you have up, I was appointed by then President Obama to the White House office, to the Council of the White House Office on Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships. And that was one of the highlights of my life. I got to go to the inauguration worship service that happened at St. John's Episcopal Church right across from the White House in January 2009, and got to be a part of the motorcade up to the Capitol for the inauguration. And then a month or so later, got this appointment. And it's been great to stay in touch with those people. And it's the very people that I was in touch with in the Obama-Biden administration that I'm now in touch with in the Biden-Harris administration. And it was great to all be together again tonight at the White House on the lawn.
And I'm glad that you guys are in touch. You're keeping yourself busy indeed. One of these good days, though, I want you to, I don't know, a lot of Guyanese are watching right now. They're pleased to have you here.
Thank you.
What do you know about Guyana? Let me just give you that. Let me hear.
I had a friend from Guyana. I can't say I know a lot of details. He would fill me in from time to time on some of the internal dynamics there. He was actually I don't know how you would actually describe it in Guyanese, but he was both of African and Indian.
They call it, one second, Reverend.
Yes,
they
sir.
call it Dogla. You got to say it like a guy. Dogla.
Dogla.
Let me hear you.
Dogla.
Go ahead, Reverend.
How'd I do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You did well. You did well. You sound as though you're from Guyana. Say it one more time.
Dogla. Yes, sir.
So you do know a little bit about that. One of these days, we got to meet up and get you some nice pepper pot.
I love that.
From Guyana. Exactly. You're the chair of the Civilian Complaint Review Board that deals with lots of complaints against police men and women, police officers and so forth. And since the formation of that board, you said over 30 years ago, over 100 and something thousand complaints. What's going on? And how do you guys handle those police complaints?
Right. So, so there are 15 of us on this board. There's a staff of 200. About half of them are investigators. We get a complaint. We take complaints in the area of excessive force, abuse of authority, discourtesy, and offensive language. And once we get a complaint, then we investigate it. And if we investigate it and we found out that the action did happen, then we ask ourselves, well, did it violate the patrol guide or some other relevant regulation? If it did, then we will substantiate that complaint, we'll determine a penalty, and then we will make a recommendation to the police department for discipline. two other things on that I should mention. One is the CCRB, also Civilian Complaint Review Board, also has the ability to prosecute cases at a departmental trial for the most egregious violations. One of those, every listener here will know, is the case where former Officer Daniel Pantaleo had Eric Garner, the late Eric Garner, in a chokehold in Staten Island, and Mr. Garner died as a result of that. You will recall that the Staten Island DA failed to indict former Officer Pantaleo, that the Justice Department took a pass, but the CCRB was the last stop for justice for the Garner family, Ms. Gwen Carr and Mr. Garner's daughters. So the CCRB, with our authority to take this officer to trial, took him to trial. He charged him with excessive force and the death of Eric Garner. We won at trial. We recommended his termination. The trial judge agreed, and then ultimately the police Commissioner O'Neill, then on our recommendation, fired Officer Pantaleo for the death of Eric Garner. The Civilian Complaint Review Board gets a lot of criticism for not having, quote, teeth, in the sense that we recommend to the police commissioner, but in the end, he can make his own decision. So we tried to address that. And in January, with the help, or February, I think it was, of this year, with the help of Mayor de Blasio, we signed a memorandum of understanding, CCRB, the commissioner and I, signed a memorandum, Commissioner Shea and I, that said that as long as the CCRB's penalty recommendations adhere to the penalty guidelines called the disciplinary matrix, as long as we adhere to those penalty guidelines, then the police commissioner would not overturn the disciplinary recommendations made by the CCRB. So it's early. We've only been into it about 9 months. It's showing a lot of promise. And so we have sought to strengthen the ability of the Civilian Complaint Review Board to hold police officers accountable and to increase the public's confidence that they can bring a complaint against an officer and it will be taken seriously. And we'll continue to work on that. We have good relationships with the city council, good relationships with the current administration, good relationships with the incoming administration. And we hope to work well with the new police commissioner. But the Civilian Complaint Review Board's mission is to hold officers, members of service of the NYPD accountable, and then to try to improve relationships between the NYPD and the people they are sworn to serve.
I think with your chairmanship, you guys have been doing an excellent job. I noticed that before the complaints against the police were actually hidden from the public, but now that is not the case at all. That has been a struggle, but it's a success story for you guys.
Yeah, it is. It's a huge success story. We work really hard to have the law overturned that shielded police disciplinary records and other materials from the public. That law was called New York State Law 50A. And with the help of a lot of advocates, with the help of city council, the mayor, state legislatures who had to do it, we were successful in being able to overturn that law. And now we can share with the public relevant information about the disciplinary histories of police officers so that they know who it is that's serving their communities. Again, the more accountability we have in the system, I think the more confident the public will have in the NYPD, the more confidence the public has in the NYPD, the better the relationships between the department and the community. That's what we seek to do by making sure that there's transparency in these disciplinary proceedings and accountability as we relate to the NYPD.
And you guys, again, kudos, a great job you've been doing on your leadership. Everywhere you go, you always leave that footprint of a success story. Maybe that's why you're all over the place. You just got back from the UK. What was your visit there like? And
thank you. I went to the UK because I recently was invited by former Vice President Al Gore to join his board, the Climate Reality Board. I've come to know Vice President Gore through his daughter, Corinna Gore, who's a graduate of Union Theological Seminary, where I serve as a senior strategic advisor to the president. And in working with Corinna Gore, sort of been a kind of a sounding board as she put together her own organization. In the process, I got to know her father, and we all developed a really good working relationship around the issue of climate change. I'm particularly interested in that issue as it relates to faith institutions and what they can do to help deal with climate change and to try to mitigate some of its more deleterious impacts. So working with Corinna Gore, her father, Vice President Al Gore, I decided it would be really important to go to this international conference on the environment that the UN sponsors, which is, this one was called COP, that 26 COP stands for Conference of the Parties. And it was an amazing event. People from all over the world, representing countries, obviously from all over the world, corporations, advocates, the young people were there, Greta Thunberg, and there's a young woman, I think from Uganda now, who's a real activist, sort of holding the powers that be there accountable for the actions they were taking. And it was a great opportunity to see humanity at work trying to save the earth from the ravages of the excesses of the ways in which we live. So it was a fascinating conference. Actually, President Obama was there. I got to see him in passing. I just happened to be in an area where he was coming down a set of steps, obviously with a fairly large entourage, but anytime you get to see him, even if it's quick and at a distance, it's a source of inspiration. So I think they've come out of that conference with some really good agreements on how to proceed on the issue of mitigating climate change. It meets again in Egypt next year, and I hope to be there again. But it's the relationship with Vice President Al Gore, his daughter Corinna Gore, Climate Reality, and the Center for Earth Ethics at Union that got me there.
You know, I don't want to be political at all. I'm not going to be political. Trust me on that. But the fact that you mentioned former Vice President Al Gore, one thing came to mind.
Right.
The case in Florida that actually denied that man the presidency.
Yes.
That's another story. But quickly before we go, I know you were excited watching the night when this gentleman became the congressman there out in Atlanta. What's his performance like thus far, you think?
I think excellent. I think he is, he's up for re-election this fall, this November coming. No, next year. I'm sorry. Next year. I'm ahead of myself. November 22. And it's great. The Reverend Dr., now Senator Raphael Warnock, a graduate of Union Theological Seminary in New York City with a PhD he got a master's and a PhD from Union. Very smart man, very committed to social justice, very committed to people who live on the margins of society. I went down. I got to know him really well. He's also a trustee at Union. Got to know him when he was a trustee. When he announced that he was running, I made it my business to go down to Atlanta and campaign for him in the areas surrounding Atlanta. Overjoyed when he won and ready to sign up again to make sure that he gets a second term. But the nation's very fortunate to have him. He is a protege also of the late John Lewis. He funeralized the late John Lewis. I got to go to that funeral because of Reverend Warnock and his executive minister, the Reverend John Vaughn. So he's a great American. He's a great civil rights leader. He's a great social justice warrior and advocate. And I think the country is very fortunate to have him as a U.S. Senator.
And also part of the history, the first African-American to be senator from that state.
From Georgia, absolutely.
All right, give him my regards, please, quickly before we go.
Sure.
Is this great news, right? Stacey Abrams announces.
Oh, yeah. So happy to see that. So happy to see that. So she and Reverend Warnock will be running at the same time. We all have to do everything we can to get them both elected. They are great Americans, and they will be great leaders for this country.
Absolutely. I know you have a plane to catch, Reverend.
Thank you.
Next time, just give me a call, and I'll send you my private jet.
Okay. Not too late. I'll wait on it.
I'll do like what Perry does and send it to Reverend Al. Reverend Al gets
there you go.
He gets his
There
private.
you go.
Or maybe
Yes,
you
sir.
can call you Douglas. Let me hear you say
Right,
it.
exactly.
Douglas.
Douglas.
Remember
Right.
that, Reverend.
Right. Let me do a shout out for this man as
Sure.
well, but also for the Reverend James Richmond, who
Yeah.
introduced us.
Yeah.
Who also is a great leader in his own right. I want to tell people to go find his book. I don't have the title right before me, but go read his book. The Reverend James Richmond from Brooklyn. I really appreciate his giving us the introduction. And thank you so much for having me on your show.
And you know, that book is a good book. I got to get James on this program as well, the Reverend. I got to get him on here.
Great.
And maybe when you see him next, get some cook up from him. Cook up.
Coco?
Look, Reverend, I want to thank
Yes.
you so much, but let us pray for this guy and his family, that an early release of this, because he has a young family. Thank you so
Yes.
much for what you're doing, not only for him, but thank you for what you're doing for humanity, not only the United States, but across the world indeed.
Thank you.
We have lots of police brutalities and all these sort of things happening in the country of our birth, Guyana. Take a close look at what's going on there too as well.
Will do.
Take a close look. Quickly before we go, we got a trade unionist and a human rights activist. Going to say a quick hello to the Reverend before we bring him in. Lincoln Lewis, veteran trade unionist in Guyana right now.
How are you, sir?
How are you?
I'm doing well, doing well. It's a pleasure
Well,
to meet you.
I observe that you're doing well. You're keeping busy.
Thank you. Trying. And you're doing good work where
making contribution to humanity. That's what you're here for.
I'm trying. I'm following in your footsteps and the good footsteps of our host.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you
you
very
so much. Yeah. Reverend, I'll get in touch. We'll stay in touch. God bless
Thank you, sir. All right,
Yeah.
you as well.
Thank you so much. All right, the Reverend there, Reverend Fred Davie, telling it like it is. And a lot of you probably were thinking that he's basically on to talk about situations in Guyana and so forth. Not just yet, but folks are monitoring what's happening in Guyana. Folks are monitoring what's happening in Guyana. But the reason why I brought the Reverend on this evening is to talk about this guy. A Guyanese, but he's also a Russian citizen. Sean Pike, he's a Jehovah's Witness, and he's in jail right now in Moscow, all because he's a Jehovah's Witness. And lots of work behind the scenes. Reverend spoke about some of those things, but Lincoln, good evening and welcome to Straight Up again tonight. Coming up shortly, we will have the leader of the opposition, Mr. Joseph Frederick Harmon. He will be running for, or he is running, for to become the next leader of the PNCR. We'll talk to him. But before that, Lincoln, what's happening? What's going on?
We keep fighting, boy. Every day is a fight.
You know, let's make it quickly.
The army is not getting larger as I expect it to be. This army got to get big. We have to fight.
Look at this briefly. They arrested this man for speaking the truth. They arrested this man for nothing. Those vagabonds in the PPP arrested this man for nothing. Those shameless goons in the PPP arrested this man for absolutely nothing, maybe other than just speaking the truth and exposing them. The former finance minister of Guyana, the Honorable Winston Jordan. Your take, Lincoln Lewis.
Let me say to you, they will write, you got to understand the PPP. They will put information out there, even if it is not the truth, to seek to convince the public that what they're doing is the right thing. I understand quite recently, I understand tonight that they're saying that, well, there's the issue of the wharf with BK Marines and the wharf in Kingston, which used to be GRB Wharf, that there is some problem with the sale of it. I don't know the details, but what I know of, that when the deal was made for the wharf for BK to get that wharf, I was a serving member of the privatization board in this country. original company that they had wanted to give this WAF, it was stationed, it had quartered in Pago Store, general store in Regent Street. And that company bid in excess of $1 billion for the WAF, right? And BK Marines bill less than $1 billion. But they had a better bid and they had a track record. And what was questioned at the board, where this company come from and where they getting money from. So they had to retreat, pull that bid off the table, and BK was the second highest bid. He had to come up, and he was able to get that was able to give BK the WAF. It wasn't $1 billion; it was less than $1 billion that was agreed upon that this WAF would be sold for. Whatever transpired after that, I don't know. But they will tell you that there are billions of dollars that were not paid. You know, serving on the privatization board taught me a number of things. Let me give you about 2 of them. Very fast.
Sure.
There was a move to give the guy so-called dairy farm to a Scotsman for $1 US, similar to what they did to the bauxite company in Boris when they gave it to Rousseau. And it was opposed that there. At the same time, they were asking persons who asked for renting places to pay rent from the first day. So my argument at those meetings was that these guys need to pay the price. You can't have better conditions for foreigners. The foreigners, the Guyanese, if you're going to give the Guyanese at certain level, if you're going to give the foreigners a certain price, you have to give the Guyanese the same conditions. You know, after that, they moved me from the privatization board.
So this particular deal actually started under the PPP, but concluded.
Yes. If I'm not wrong, Minister Kaulasar, I believe he was the minister when this.
Derek Kaulasar, yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe another Kaulasar, but Kaulasar, yeah. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. So this is not a new deal. This is not a deal that started under the coalition government. It's something that started
under those folks, those dictators.
Let me tell you, they are going to go the distance to criminalize not only those people who work with the coalition, but they are going to go the distance to criminalize African men and women in this country. Those that are not prepared to toe the line with them. That is what, they don't care if you win the case. What they want to do is to put a cuff on you, drag you through the courts, humiliate you, that you can't get a job. Even if you leave this country, you can't get a job. Because when they click, they see that you will be charged for embezzlement or something. That is the process. That's the process to do. So,
all right, Lincoln, we're in terms of looking at the time, there's another issue that you want to, and I agree with what you said there, that they want to demonize and do all these sort of things, mainly to persons of African descent, but there are other citizens that they're targeting as well. Coming up next will be the leader of the opposition, the Honorable Joseph Frederick Harmon. Before we go, I heard that there was an issue where there was an event today at Parliament building, and basically at Parliament, and the GTUC was actually invited, but the Speaker of the National Assembly wants to dictate who should attend.
The communication came from the clerk of the National Assembly, advising the president that we have this event for the enhancement of the crystal statue. Yeah, and they're inviting it to you to speak. Invite her to speak. The president called me and the president said, look, we've got this invitation. I will not go. I will prefer you to go because you are more au fait with what to be done at this short notice.
Sure.
So I decided to go. And she advised the clerk this afternoon, that the person that she will not be coming, the TUC will be represented by the General Secretary. And the subcommittee advised her that she can come, or the General Secretary can't come. Right? So
basically they shut you up. Yes. I know you have a thing.
The president decided that she's not going to go. She said they will not dictate for the TUC who must represent the TUC. Regardless if they spoke with her or the missive was sent to her, since you mentioned the TUC as president of the TUC, the office comes from the organization, and the organization will determine who represents it at a forum. So she said she's not going to be dictated to by the parliament, or basically we see it as the party politics, the PPP politics is creeping to the parliament, where we are seeing that even national event, a man who have fought for all Guyanese, an event that surrounds his life, his work and his life, that event has become now very divisive, where we are dividing people.
It happens all the time. The PPP, that's what they're about. Lincoln Lewis, we will talk with you later on this particular issue. Lots of other issues we have to talk about as well, but we're preparing now for the opposition leader next. Thank you so much for your time. Don't be a stranger. Yep, we'll have you back on. Thank you.
Joy.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, Lincoln Lewis, we just had to cut him short a little bit because we have the leader of the opposition. A lot of you, let me check some of your comments, and I want you to share the link as well. A lot of you thought that he's not going to show up this evening. I was also, well, I don't know what to think. Let me just leave the leader of the opposition alone, but he's here with us. I noticed that his guys are putting on makeup. They're doing all sorts of things to him, man. Mr. Joseph Frederick Harmon. Good evening to you, sir.
Good evening, Mark. And thanks for inviting me on your show. This waiting room that you have here needs a better air-conditioned unit.
Yes, we will do so. In fact, where is our operator? Let's put up our Cash App and our Zelle and all these things so we could get a bigger air condition. But we're glad that the folks in the studio are treating you right. And
yes, I had a cup of coffee, and I think they treated me well.
Let's get ready to rock and roll. Today has been a busy day. Busy day. The sad news about the arrest, the unjust arrest of a man who served in the coalition as the Minister of Finance, an honorable man, has been arrested, targeted, and is being persecuted by the PPP. Let's begin with that, sir.
Yes, Mark, thank you very much. And first, before I get to that, let me clarify this matter of appearing on your program and the fact that people felt I wouldn't come. I think you should clear that matter up, Mark, because you very well know that the last time I was to appear, I gave you at least 2 days notice that I would not be there. So it did appear as if, okay, overnight, okay, the leader of the opposition did turn up. So let me clear that up. And secondly, that since then, you and I, of course, have been in communication. I've been on 2 of your programs, but I think they were not my particular specific programs. But thank you very much for having me, Mark. And I want to thank all your viewers for staying up just to hear me. But certainly today was, I think, a dark day in our history, in which one of a former Minister of Finance who served with distinction and honor under the APNU AFC administration was treated like a common criminal. In fact, worse than the common criminals, because the common criminals are walking about the streets of Georgetown. Many of them who are actually incarcerated tried and sentenced were released by the PPP, 65 of them, and we don't even know who their names are. So those criminals seems to have more right than a man of the stature of Winston Jordan. We're all very angry about this, Mark. And it is just about the PPP trying to be vengeful. This is revenge that Jack Day was trying to unleash on people who he feels had anything at all to do with those charges which were brought and successfully prosecuted in the courts against Anil Nandlal for fraud, against Ashley Singh for fraud, against Winston Brassington, against Irfan Ali, and also against Bharat Jagdeo himself. So they're now angry about what has happened and the fact that the courts actually were satisfied to a large extent that these were proper cases brought before them. All of them, of course, were thrown out by the DPP when the PPP were installed into office. And so you'll never know what were the reasons given, but they were all thrown out. So the fact of the matter is, Mark, that this is, like one of your viewers are saying, this is IPAS. This is more than just Winston Jordan. This is really an attack on an entire population of people who supported the AP and AFC, and more importantly, Black people in this country. That is the issue. And so I want to say, in fact, as I said earlier today on a live which I did, that Winston Jordan has the coalition's support. He has my support. And once I heard that he was going to Soku, I said, Winston, I am going to send you the lawyers. And the lawyers will be there with you. And that photograph that you saw there with Winston were the two lawyers from us who actually went there to ensure that his rights were protected. And even in the presence of those two, a senior counsel and junior counsel, he recognized that the police, that they were still trying to violate Winston Jordan's rights. Took him to Sparndam police station. And so all of that whole episode, while he was going there, the lawyers were speaking to the police and they would not listen. So the guest that you had on earlier spoke about justice and criminal justice and the reason why we must have very careful complaint, a relationship and arrangements against police officers. I think we will have to invite him here sometime to have a look and see what is going on. And it's good that he can pronounce Douglas so easily that you actually gave him a test. But certainly, Mark, this matter with Winston is not gone down well. It will not go down well. And we are going to take certain steps in this regard. I've already said to Winston and his family and friends that we stand solidly behind him and we will provide the kind of support that he needs. But it requires more than that. It now requires the population to become a little bit more incensed about what is happening. They become more incensed because the PPP regime, they're becoming much bolder in what they're doing.
One of the things, Mr. Harmon, people have been saying that these arrests and these persecutions, they have been happening not just today with Winston Jordan, Mr. Winston Jordan, not just today, but they have been happening since these folks were installed into office as of August 2nd, 2020. Lots of cases. Here's a question or so from one of our listeners here, Brenda Casey, is asking, why hasn't Joe Harmon hit the streets? Well, they're saying, Joe Harmon, because you're the opposition leader, shut the country down because these things have been happening all along. Another person commented to say that this IPAS is not only happening today, it is happening all along. What are the plans you guys have? You guys have had over 1 year now. Let's hear from you, sir.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for that very insightful comment and the comments that are made by my viewers. Certainly, there's so much that you can do as an opposition. And I would like to say that as the leader of the opposition, that the opposition MPs that I lead, that we are very aggressive and we are very careful people there and at that level. But certainly, you know, Mark, you need to have the full support of your parties in the coalition when you decide to take steps that are going to put you on the streets. And you don't really just go on the street without a plan as to what you want to achieve. You know, I heard one of an American pastor said the other day, he was commenting on the Black Lives Movement, Pastor T.D. Jakes. And he said that protest is good, but protest in itself must achieve something. That when you have protest, it must achieve a change in policy or a change in something. And I believe that when we decide to take those steps, that we must be prepared for the full end result of what needs to be done. And right now, what needs to be done is that we need to change this government. We need to have a different government. We need to have the PPP out of office. And the steps which we take must lead to that. It must lead to that. And whether we achieve that by way of an election petition, or we achieve that by the way they're running out of this time, it will require electoral action on the part of our people. It requires a certain level of motivation and mobilization on the part of our people to be able to get to that point where we can say, time for fresh elections, and we are ready for it. I think that we are still at a point away from that, and this is what the actual election situation now in the party that is now bringing up. We are now getting that kind of vibrance, that kind of energy from the base that I believe was needed for quite some time.
But let me ask you this, Mr. Harmon, that people are of the view, and majority of the people are of the view, that whatever those plans are that you guys have there in the opposition or the coalition, the PPP do not seem so concerned about those plans. They're not listening. They hear the ears hard, as we say in Guyana. They continue to persecute people almost daily. Look at the fact that the COVID-19 badly handled 1,000 persons. The figure is going to almost 1,000 persons, right, died as a result of COVID-19. When you guys left office, it was just about 23 or 24. Today it's almost 1,000 persons. All of the people who have been persecuted, no evidence, nothing against them. Lots of things happening in the Guyana police force, all of these things. And people are saying there's only one language the PPP understands, and that is mass street protest. Mass street protest. Do you believe in that?
I do believe in that, Mark. As I said to you before, that mass street protest must have a result that you aim to get at. And to mobilize all of Guyana. In fact, a lot of people said, shut down Guyana. Yeah, that's a good idea. But the point is that how do you sustain it? And we have gone through all of these scenarios. And some of the same people that tell you shut down Guyana, when you call upon them, they shut in their own house. You understand? So that some people are very vocal on Facebook and on social media. But when you say, okay, let us go. Let us go on the street. Let us do what you want to do physically. Then it's a different story. But certainly I want to say that all of those persons who have actually been calling for this, that I trust that once we make that call, that they all avail themselves of this opportunity. But I think that what the PPP is doing now, Mark, has been going on for some time, even while you were incarcerated. You remember about Ronald Waddle and all of those almost 1,500 people that were killed under Jagdeo. And I mean, we can say that nothing much was done then, but eventually things get done. Jagdeo is actually before the International Human Rights Court for some one of these incidents, these matters too. And so I think that eventually these things catch up with them. But we have to prepare the groundwork. We have to prepare the paperwork and so on for these things to happen. So you don't just get up tomorrow and say, let us go on the streets. We have to make sure that we have a proper plan. And I know that the PPP, that they're trying to trample on the rights of our people, but we are pushing back. We are taking steps in the courts. We are taking steps internationally. We are engaging the international community. But of course, many of them are also in bed with the PPP. And so we have to take our message far and wide. And so I just want to thank also those persons in the diaspora who've actually come out and made a clear statement about what is happening here in Guyana. Here in Guyana alone, it is difficult for us to do it by ourselves. We have to enlist international support. And quite a number of those support we have been actually, we've been writing, we've been asking for, and some of this we have been getting. And I want to see that this continues. And it's a matter of time, Mark. It's a matter of time before we actually get to that point where we can actually say it is time up for the PPP. I believe we are close to that point in time because people's passion, they're raised and people are angry. But it is about how we move to the next step of getting rid of the PPP. So it's a matter of doing that. And when we speak about the strategies for doing so, I believe mass street process is one aspect of it. There are several other aspects which we have to examine as a responsible political force, and those are things that we'll have to deal with. So that insofar as the question about mass street process is concerned, I say I believe that that is necessary, but it has to be a timed activity. It's a matter of timing. All across the world you have it, but it's a matter of timing and when you consider it to be most critical and when you will get the best results. I think that is important.
Got a few more questions for you, Mr. Harmon. And for those of you who have just joined us, we have the leader of the opposition, no stranger to you guys, Mr. Joseph Frederick Harmon with us this evening. He's also running to become the next leader of the People's National Congress Reform. We'll touch on some questions on that. But before we get to that, the upcoming Congress the elections petition, how comfortable or how confident, are you that the coalition is going to be successful? I know there's a hearing coming up sometime later this month as it pertains to petition 99. How comfortable are you guys, or how confident are you guys that you all will be successful?
Mark, I think we have done what needs to be done to file these petitions. The petitions in of themselves have a strong basis for success. The evidence is there. The evidence about what the PPP did in these 2020 elections, it's clear because it came out of the process of recount. So it's not as if we are guessing about what happened. We have the proof. We have the proof about over 11,000 and something ballots that were cast on the east coast of Demerara without any statutory documents. We have the proof of a number of persons who were dead and were voted actually on the day in question. We have a number of persons who were overseas on the day of the election, but still voted. And so it's not just a matter of us making up these things. There's clear evidence about it. And so this is what is the basis of our petitions. The two petitions, one is based on law, the other one is based on factual evidence. And so I have a strong belief that both of those petitions will succeed. However, we have to deal with a situation in which you have a judiciary that sometimes look at the facts, look at the law, and then decide, in my opinion. So your facts are okay, the law is okay, but in my opinion, this is how the case ought to go. So we have many decisions that were made like that during the elections. And so while I say I have a strong belief in the strength of our petitions, we still have to deal with a court that has actually ruled in certain ways that were not in our best interest in the past. But we have to go with that. That is what our justice system is. And we will go to all levels to ensure that our petitions are heard properly.
All right. 5 minutes after 10 o'clock. It might be different wherever you are, but in Guyana, it's 5 minutes after 10 o'clock. Mr. Harmon, let's touch on this particular issue here where the PPP, they go around into communities, some of the stronghold areas of the coalition, and they're trying to spread the propaganda, convincing the people that, hey, guess what? They're there to do something that the coalition did absolutely nothing for their support base. How do you respond to that sort of propaganda?
Well, Mark, it's indeed propaganda. And it's indeed the PPP using some of the folks in our own communities to spread that message. The PPP, they're not going themselves to spread the message. They're using persons in our communities as proxies to spread that message. So you'd have seen this message that came from this guy in Boston about what the APNU didn't do, that Ramson just come and do it. Well, I asked somebody to take out the picture of the Boston ground that they said Ramson came and did. And all they did was to change the zinc sheet and put chicken mesh around the ground. And the belief I have is that the same person who actually made that video benefited from that contract. So what you have people, some of our own supporters in these communities that are being paid by the PPP to mount that kind of propaganda. And I just want to say to them that do not be fooled. The PPP don't love you. They'll give you money to do something, and behind your back, they will talk about you. So these statements that are being made in our communities about us not doing anything, the PPP, they're not doing it themselves. They are paying people who the community listens to. These are folks who have an audience in some of these communities. And this is why this thing is spreading like that. But we are using our own organizations on the ground to surround these people and let them understand that, look, this thing is not going to work. That our communities are suffering. Our communities are still being discriminated against. Our communities are still being marginalized. Our communities are still not getting the benefits of all of these grants and payouts that are taking place. They're still being discriminated against. And so when some of the people in our own community come with that foolish message, they have to understand that they're only speaking for themselves and maybe a small group of people that surrounds them that gets a little payout from the little money that the PPP gives to them. And this is what Ramson is doing. Ramson is the Minister of Culture, Youth and Sports. Ask him what has happened to the swimming pool. Ask him what has happened to it. Why hasn't he spent money to fix it? Every ground he had $10 million for. And look at all of the community grounds. What has happened to them? And so he's using state funds to pay these mouthpieces in our communities rather than spending the money on the facilities in the communities themselves. So I want to say, Mark, that this is an old ploy by the PPP, where they pick the influential people in these communities, give them some money, give them contracts, and then lose them. But when you look at what is happening, when you look at the contracts that they get and you compare it to what they give to their own supporters, you say, what is this? This is chicken feed. It is crumbs off of the table. And so I just want to say to all of our supporters and all our communities, do not be used by the PPP. I understand that people will always want money, they will want something to eat. I understand that. But do not be used in this way by the PPP, because your family and your friends, they continue to suffer under this dictatorship that has developed in Guyana.
All right, dictatorship indeed. 9 minutes after 10 o'clock. Mr. Joseph Harmon, the leader of the opposition with us. There's a hot contested race coming up for the leader to become the next leader of the PNCR reform. Mr. Joseph Harmon, the opposition leader, is fighting I don't know, fighting for his life to become the next leader of the PNCR. It seems to be a tough race from my angle. I don't know from your angle if it's an easiest cheese for you, but explain to our listeners all throughout Guyana and the diaspora, what makes you fit to become the next leader of the People's National Congress reform? Why should the delegates go out and vote for Joseph Frederick Harmon?
Thank you very much, Mark. Very good question. And there's so much that I can say. But let me start by saying this, that I am the current leader of the opposition in Guyana. And that there's some rumor going around that, or if somebody else wins, they could remove me. But I just want to make it clear that the Constitution is very clear about that the leader of the opposition can only be removed at the next elections of the country, next general regional elections. They can't remove any other way.
Let me ask you a question. One second, Mr. Harmon. I'm sorry that I interject. You're a lawyer. I am not. Yes. Are you saying the only way that you can be removed is next elections? Or can your colleagues in Parliament file a no confidence motion against you? Or
but that is possible. That is possible. But what I'm saying to you is that the numbers that you require for that will be difficult for any individual to amass. The numbers that are required for that to happen. Of course, there's a no confidence motion filed against me by the PPP. And, I'm glad that they don't have confidence. They don't need to have confidence in me. I believe if they had confidence in me, I'd have been worried that I'm not doing a good job. But certainly what I want to say is that all of the previous leaders of the opposition in Guyana, in the PNC, were leaders of the party. Starting from Forbes Burnham, when he was in the National Assembly, when he was Prime Minister and President, he was the leader of the party. When President Hoyt was president and then became leader of the opposition, he was the leader of the party. When Robert Corbyn was the leader of the opposition, he was the leader of the party. When David Granger was a leader of the opposition and then became president, he was and still is the leader of the party. And so there is a clear pattern that you see there, Mark, that the leader of the opposition in the PNC has always been the leader of the party. And that is important because when you stand up as a leader of the opposition, when you say, okay, let us go and protest, you need to know that you have the backing of the party behind you because you have that authority, that power, that force of the party behind you. And that is very important. That's critical. So that if you have the two positions as it stands right now, being held by two different persons, you can have the opposition calling for certain actions, but the party has to consult with the central executive and so on and so forth, and so something doesn't happen. And so we have that situation right now. So that's one thing. The second thing, of course, Mark, is that I have outlined with a team of young, middle-aged, and senior persons in the team that I have, we have outlined a vision for the party going forward. And it is what we call a 10-point vision. It's something like this. And this, 10 points. And this is basically saying how we see the party going forward. And so I believe that when someone comes to you, they must outline a vision and they must outline a plan. I have done so. But Mark, my whole history has been one of service and one of leadership. From the time I was a young man, I was one of the persons selected by the party, by our founder leader at that time, to join the army. I was a member of the Young Socialist Movement at that time. I joined the army at the age of 19 years and graduated after that period of training as the head of that class. They call it the under officer, the best graduating student. 2 years later, at 21, the founder leader identified 3 young officers to send to China so that they can understand the Chinese system. He had gone there and met with Chou Enlai and Mao Zedong and sent us there. We went there for 8 months to understand what was happening. And so our founder leader demonstrated that he had that confidence in young people. And I was one of those young persons sent off to do that. I came back and I served with distinction in the Army. I retired as a lieutenant colonel and had several command appointments, leading men and women. So that level of leadership was always there. After I left, I became an attorney at law and had, until now, have my own practice. In 2005, 2006, I became the president of the Guyana Bar Association. Leadership again. And persons who, in the legal fraternity, demonstrated that they had that confidence in me. And so throughout, Mark, I've always had this leadership ability. When it came around to the elections in 2010, I started to work with President Granger when he was actually running for a position for the leadership of the party and eventually the presidential candidate. And in 2011, we worked together to manage the elections of 2011. I was a campaign manager. When for the first time, in over 23 years or thereabouts, we were able to reduce the PPP to a minority in the National Assembly. Because together with the AFC at that time, we had the command of the parliament while they had the executive. So Ramatar was in fact a minority president. And this was work which was done as campaign manager under David Granger. In 2015, we teamed up with the AFC. Again, I was the campaign manager, and we were able to beat the PPP and got into office. In 2015 until 2020, I continued to do that work. So I have a history, Mark, of leadership. But beyond that, even within the party, I have done several things in the party that basically endears me to the membership of our party. And it was something that I thought very seriously about because I feel that this leadership is about service. It's about service to the people of our party, to our comrades all across this country. And everywhere around the country I go, people are actually talking about what I had done in their communities. And so I think that it is really a situation in which there's a certain level of confidence in my ability to perform at that level. Because people know that I've already done things which proves that I can lead and prove that I can lead large bodies of human beings. I believe that the party is at that critical stage where my leadership skills, my skills in working with people is important. I believe that this is what I bring to the table, an ability to bring people together. I worked while we were trying to get the APNU, AFC, APNU together as a partnership and to work with organizations and political parties that were poles apart, that we were able to bring together under the APNU. And the AFC, when we decided to have the APNU AFC coalition, I worked on that team to bring it together. And so I have the experience of bringing people together. I have the experience of making different parts work together as one whole. And I think this is what we need in the party right now. We need people who can actually reach across the boundaries. But first of all, we need to unite our party. We need to bring our comrades together. And I think that is the first element, that's the first point on my 10-point plan, the unity of our party. And I have said this, that I am prepared to work with whatever the delegates decide at this Congress. because I believe that the party is bigger than any one of us as candidates. And so we have to understand that we were left a very strong foundation by Forbes Burnham and all the leaders throughout those 64 years of our existence have actually built on what Forbes Burnham left. I think this is time now for us to keep building. And I have proven in the party that I'm a builder. I have built a Congress House in Region 2. I've built a Congress House in Region 3. I've built a Congress House in Region 4. And I've committed to building other Congress Houses across this country so that our party comrades can have a place where they're proud to be and to be meeting and as a center of economic activity. I think that our party also requires at the level of our membership a very clear plan for the economic development of the party and of those comrades at the lower levels of our party. We need to ensure that we can give them that good life that we spoke about when we were in government. And I feel that we can start with doing that in the party itself. I believe that we have the resources in the party that were left since the days of the founder leader. But I just think we just need now to how to work, how to use those resources for the benefit of the party itself and for the benefit of our comrades in the groups. So I think, Mark, that Harmon is the candidate to vote for. All the delegates who are listening, that Joseph Harmon is your candidate, and that I come with a team, a very strong team. Mr. Royce Zilford is the chairperson that we are in, that's campaigning as part of my slate. Annette Ferguson as a vice chairperson that's campaigning on my slate. Christopher Jones as a vice chairperson. Daniel Siram as the treasurer on my slate. And several others who are going to be vying for 15 positions on the central executive. Of those persons, I trust that the delegates will find favor with Ganesh Maipal, who I've identified as my general secretary designate. Should the delegates find favor with him and appoint him as a member of the central executive. So I think that the team will work very well. And I want to say too that because these are elections, sometimes all of the people that you put up don't get elected, but I am prepared to work with whatever the delegates decide. I am prepared to work with that team. I'm a team player. I believe in teamwork. And I think that this is what we need at this time in the PNCR.
All right, Mr. Joseph Harmon, 23 minutes after 10 o'clock, you mentioned Christopher Jones. I've noticed somebody said like Christopher Jones is on everybody's team. He's on everybody's team.
That happens, Mark. That happens because, you know, we put out the slate and there are people, in fact, there are other persons who will also put out slates with the same names on it. But on the actual day of elections, it is the delegates who will make their choice.
You know, Mr. Harmon, you mentioned something that I'm impressed with. You actually said that, and a lot of our listeners probably listen keenly to that as well, too, that as opposition leader, you're not leader of the party, and it doesn't give you the amount of opportunities to get things done because you're not the leader. You mentioned LFS Burnham, you mentioned Desmond Hoyt, you mentioned Mr. Corbyn, mentioned Mr. Granger as well. But this is a unique situation with you, that you are not the leader of the party, and you are just the opposition leader, the first time in the history of the party. That you're not, and in order to run, to get your way, you have to be the leader of the party and at the same time, the opposition leader in order to get things done. Did I hear you correctly?
No, well, Mark, you heard me halfway correctly. That I'm saying that you can get things done much quicker and in a more effective manner. We can still get things done as it is right now, but it is not as effective as it is.
Okay, so in order for it to be effective, it would be nice for you to be, it would be
It
nice
is
for you to be the leader of the
essential.
party.
It is essential. This is what our party has had for all the 64 years of its existence.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Let me ask you this now. Let us say that you're not elected leader of the party. Will you be willing to give up your position as opposition leader to whoever wins so that they can be effective?
Mark, it's not a matter of giving up your position. Remember, you are an elected official. I was elected. First of all, I was extracted from a list of persons who had offered themselves up for national elections. And you're extracted, and then the MPs who are also attracted, they vote you, they elect you as the leader of the opposition. Right? And so once you are elected, that is how you serve as the leader of the opposition. And so I cannot say on my own, okay, if I'm not the leader of the party, that I will resign as the leader of the opposition. If I find that I am unable to be effective in the position, if I find that I cannot provide the quality of leadership that the MPs in the parliament requires, that the 218,000 or so persons who voted for us requires, then I will do that. But certainly, there's a wider Guyanese community that voted for us as the AP and UAFC. That's wider than the PNC. And so I cannot just give up that obligation which I have to all of Guyana on that basis. But as I said, if in a better analysis of the situation that it is not being effective, then certainly I will go. If I'm not effective as leader of the opposition, I will go. I will just sit there just because I want to warm up a seat. But I'm saying that I represent a large portion of this country, almost half of this country. And therefore, I cannot just abandon them. You understand?
Fair enough. People don't want to be abandoned indeed. But let me ask you, with regards to some allegations leveled against you that you are too soft on the PPP and all these sort of things, do you think that would have an impact in terms of how the delegates vote with you if they have that perception that you're too soft on the PPP?
Mark, I think that this is a sort of a rumor that started around now, because the people of Guyana know that from 2011 I have been the face of the fight against the PPP. From 2011 up to now. It's only recently all of a sudden this thing about SAF come up, Mark. You remember even after the 2020 elections, from the 3rd or the 2nd of March, some people went into hibernation. I've been fighting all the way through. I was the face that all Guyanese saw. I fought all of these Caribbean leaders and world leaders that believed that they had a right to speak about Guyana and the Guyanese elections. The Barbados Prime Minister, all of these other prime ministers in the region. And then, of course, the US Secretary of State, Mr. Pompeo, who said that we must concede even before the recount was completed. I stood up to Mr. Pompeo, and by extension, Mr. Trump, and said we are an independent nation, and that we will not concede. Concede to who or concede to what? And so Guyanese people remember that. And throughout that period, when all sorts of spears and daggers were being thrown at us, I stood up and fought the PPP with a set of young people who were with me as well. And so all of a sudden, this new narrative has come up. Look at what has happened since we were in office. The Henry brothers, those Henry boys that were killed on the west coast of Berbice and Harry Singh, I was there. I was giving guidance to the people as well. Look at what has happened with the nurses' strike and all of that. I was there in the forefront. Look at what happened at GCOM. When they wanted to take certain actions, I was there in the forefront, in the picket line, in the front. On to 2 days ago, when Rams made his foolish statement, I was there in the front, in the picket line. And so sometimes when these issues about being soft comes up, it is because there's a specific narrative that is being created. A specific narrative. When the American Forum that was supporting the People's Progressive Party with all of the big shot, this and that, were trying to railroad us, I stood and said to them, we will not have it. So it is not only the PPP that I have taken on over these years, it's also their international friends, their cohorts all around the world. And so when you speak about a fight, you must show results. That is what I say. You must show results of what you do. And I have a lot of results to show for that kind of fight. So when people talk about being soft is not about me. In fact, you know what the people used to call me? Because I put it on them all the time, hard mouth. Because my tongue is lazy. And so when people make those statements, they are actually repeating a narrative that suits certain people at a certain time. But we will get over that. The people of our party, the comrades in our party, as I go from group to group all across this country, they recognize that I am the person that can lead them into government with a team of people who would work with me. I will create a pathway for us to get back into office. This is what I pledge to do. As I said to you, Mark, that at any point in time where I feel that I am not effective in what I am doing, then I will clear the way for somebody else who is effective to do it. I am not going to just sit and warm a seat for any reason whatsoever. That's who I am.
All right. I'm looking at some of the comments. Thank you for that explanation, Mr. Harmon. Sorry about that. That's we are looking for this. Joseph Harmon, and it's right there. We have Dr. Richard Van West Charles. We have Aubrey Compton Norton. He got the palm tree. Van West Charles got the palm tree. But Joseph Frederick Harmon got a star, and a lot of supporters of the PNC have been asking, what's going on? What's behind that star? Explain to us, Mr. Harmon.
All right. Mark, there is, in fact, the palm tree is always there. I've always been sheltering under the branches, the golden branches of the palm tree. These are images. In fact, if you look at everything that I do, the palm tree is always there. And these are basically symbols that people put on a slogan or a pamphlet or so on that would attract people. That star is basically showing you that this is what is going to happen. This is the rising star. This is the star that the party requires at this point in time. And so the party requires a star. And I think
so you actually approve that? You actually approve that, or your designing guy approved that? You approve that?
No, I approved of it. I approved of it.
Are you saying that the palm tree is always there, right? I'm looking.
Yes,
maybe
the palm tree is always there in whatever I do. I said so. This particular design, I approved of it.
All right, good. That's a star, as the star of the show. Now, coming closer to the 11th is just around the corner.
Yes.
3 of you, right now, serious contenders. 3 of you, Richard Van West Charles, Aubrey Compton Norton, Joseph Frederick Harmon, the 3 of you. Are you willing to have a debate, at least one debate with these guys, a debate so that the public can listen to all of what you guys plan to do?
Mark, I've said this before, that the debate really is, this is an internal election in the party. This is about our party membership. It's about our delegates. Ultimately, it is the delegates that will determine who they want as leader. And so I don't think that this is a national elections that require a public debate. I think that the debate is taking place right now in the groups. In fact, this afternoon, I left a group. I made a presentation to them. And while I was leaving, Dr. Van der Schaal was outside waiting to go and make his presentation to the group. We hugged each other and so on because Richard is my friend, Aubrey is my friend. We are comrades in the PNC. And so I don't really believe that a national debate is something that will serve the purpose of our delegates and our party comrades. The comrades need to have eyeball-to-eyeball contact with the candidates and ask them direct questions. Right? It's about them. And this is what is happening now as the candidates go all across the country. We're all across this country. I see my colleagues here in all parts of the country. I'm in all parts of the country. And I believe that that is where the debate has to take place before the groups, before the comrades in our party. And that is where I think the debate ought to take place. I don't feel that a debate, a national debate, is something that will be beneficial at this point in time to our delegates because they are far-flung. Many of them will not have access to these means to be able to listen to what you're saying. Some of them have to travel far distances. In fact, on the weekend, I went to the north Rupununi, a place called Arnaputa, and communities from all around there came. But of course, they will not have access to the internet. They don't have access to this kind of debate that we're going to have. So what you will have is a small section of the population listening to the debate and asking questions, when in fact the large group of people that we need to convince, we need to speak to, they will not be onto that. So
So basically no to the debate. No.
I'm saying no, I'm not in favor of it.
Good. All right. But even though the social media and all of these things, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people have access, even the people in the interior, even the people in Blackbush Pola, even the people at Alness, Kildonan, even the operator, you see the operator there in the studio got 2 phones. Lemon has 2 phones. People all over. Why do I have the feeling, and I say this with all due respect, you're not dodging a debate, are you?
No, Mark. I'm not. I'll never dodge a debate. I'm just being practical in the circumstance. I can say to you, as I said to you, I was in Arnaputu over the last weekend, and you don't get signals there easy. You have to go tilt a particular place so you can get the signal. So even if you have a phone, you will not have the access to what is happening here. When you go down south, as far as Achiweb, Shelton, and these places, it's the same thing. We have had to install during our time in office community radio stations so that these communities can have information coming to them on a regular basis. We have tried to install internet hubs in some of them, and so you have within a particular circle, you can have internet access, but certainly the majority of those communities are still without that facility. So I would not think that.
Moving on, one of the things that you guys did in the coalition was to ensure that people out in Oriala, Northwest District, Madhya, all over, internet access. Kudos to the coalition. Let's move on. We're looking at the time. 39 minutes after 10 o'clock, the honorable leader of the opposition here with us. I'm seeing some interesting comments, and I just want you guys to know that it's okay to agree to disagree, but let us not get to the part of disrespectful in terms of some of your comments. I've also noticed that some folks cannot comment. They seem to think that they have been blocked. If you can't comment, you haven't been blocked. There are some folks who have been experiencing that, including relatives of Lemon as well. So I'm not in the habit of blocking you guys. Not because you may disagree with me. Yes, we do block the trenchies. The trench croppers get blocked. So I don't know. It's something that we'll have to fix. Mr. Harmon,
yes.
This Congress coming up on the 11th, how confident are you that this is going to be transparent and democratic, and that at the end of this process, whoever wins, that they will hug, shake hands, and help to build not just the party, but by extension, the coalition. How confident are you?
Mark, I would say that the process is right now still a work in progress. It is still a work in progress up to this late stage. Tomorrow, we're going to have another meeting of our central executive where certain reports are expected to come in. At this point, the arrangements are not up to scratch, and I trust that by the time we get to this weekend or so, that those things will happen. But they're not where they ought to be at this point in time. And even though I have confidence in the people who have been identified to do these things, I still think that there's still a lot to be done. Tomorrow will be an important meeting of our central executive, at which all of the administrative arrangements, we've complained a lot about the administrative arrangements. And over time, some of them are being fixed, but still there's still some to be fixed. And so I would say that after this weekend's meeting, I have a better sense as to determine whether, in fact, the arrangements can stand scrutiny outside of Guyana. That's what I think would happen.
All right, we're looking at the time indeed. One final question on the date coming up, December 11 for Congress. And as you look right into the eyes of the cameras there, I know our operator is focusing the camera on you to let our listeners know, and those who are listening via the radio on the ground at 107.1 FM, I know you can't see his face, but you're listening. Is there a possibility that this Congress can be postponed?
Mark, I think that if at a certain point all of the administrative arrangements are not in place, that is a possibility. It is a possibility. I would not want to venture a definitive statement on that matter right now, but I think that we have what is called a committee of elders, who are like the former leader of the party and several other long-serving members of our party have actually come out, and they are assisting in looking at how these arrangements are being put in place. And I trust that it will be fixed by that time. But certainly, I think that the candidates, as well as the delegates who are identified, that they are basically voicing their concerns and they're making their concerns known to the central executive of the party. And I'm a team player, I'm a party person, and therefore would like to see these matters fixed within the party. I don't believe in taking our business outside of the party and discussing it outside there. I think that on the floor of our Congress, on the floor of the group meetings and so on, this is where party business ought to be dealt with. And that is my firm belief. And this is why I will not really venture too far into commenting on all of the arrangements, because I believe internally we have to fix that. We have to fix these things internally.
And so you're saying that there is a high possibility that the postponement, of this Congress will come up for discussion.
Well, yes. In fact, there's a motion to that effect. There's a motion to that effect which speaks to the administrative arrangements, and there's a motion to that effect which, of course, will come up for discussion tomorrow.
Will you, if you have an opportunity to vote, will you vote for Congress to be postponed?
I would only do so if I believe that the administrative arrangements are not sufficient to guarantee a transparent and a fair process. I believe that that is what is important. The process must be fair, it must be transparent, and that everyone must feel that there is, at the end of it, it represents the will of the people, it represents the will of those comrades who will come from all distances to come to cast their votes, they must feel that this is representing the will, their will, whatever results come out. And if, in fact, you cannot guarantee that, then certainly that is not what we are looking for, because we want to continue to set the standard in the PNC for the rest of the country. We want to continue to do that. So when we speak about transparency, when we speak about fairness, we can look at our own processes and point to it. We have had a democratic system in our party for over 60-something years. And I believe that that is the democracy which has produced me. That democracy has produced Van West Charles. That democracy has produced Aubrey Norton. And this is what floats up all of the other young leaders who are coming up. That democracy which allows them to come to the fore to say, I believe that I can either lead the party, I can chair the party, I can be a central executive member of the party. It is that democracy which we speak about.
Kind of nice democracy indeed. But thus far, do you feel, you've been traveling the country, are you of the view that the process is fair and transparent?
As I said, Mark, it's a work in progress. In some of the regions, the arrangements are well advanced. In some of the regions, they are not at that point as yet. In fact, these are some of the reports that are still coming in. So as I said to you, I will not want to make a definitive comment on that until after tomorrow, when we'll see what has happened. But certainly, I would wish to keep our party's business within the party, and that you will get I suppose a general statement, but I would not want to discuss the full details of our party's business on a radio station or a television station.
You know, Mr. Harmon, before we go, I sometimes I'm told, even when I was a little boy, they used to call me hard mouth too, right? I kind of like a seaman, a seafar kind of guy. Why do I have the feeling that some of you guys want this Congress to be postponed? And if it is postponed, what sort of energy you think is going to be sent to your support base, the PNC support base, that here this Congress is postponed indefinitely?
Mark, as I said, I would wish that we are able to get all our arrangements in place for the 11th of December. My camp, we are very confident about going forward with this slate that we have, the team that we have. We feel very confident. But what we would not want to do is to go forward with something that will be marred in any sort of controversy. It will not do the party any good. It will not do the party any good. And so I don't want you to go run away with this. I want to postpone it. I don't want, but I want it.
No, I am not getting that. I'm just simply asking.
I don't want your listeners to get that impression. Because the team Harmon, we are ready. We are ready. All of the requirements that have to be submitted and everything, we done all of that. We are ready. And I think that if once all of the administrative arrangements are put in place and we are satisfied about it, of course, you never have everything in order. Some things you may have not right here and there, but generally speaking, once we have the most of them in order, we are fine. We're going to go. We're ready to go.
All right. So that means that whatever the results are, you are more than willing, you will accept the results.
Yes, I say that because once we go into the elections and we go and vote and so on, there's no point in going back and cry over spilled milk. I will accept it. I'm not about a person who goes about and cry, I've found this and that and so on. And I trust that all of the other candidates will have that posture, will have that mindset. That because they'll always have winners and there'll be losers. But that people must not go about running the party down if they did not succeed. We are not like that at all. We believe and we are confident that the people will see the value in a team Harmon. We believe that. I think that when we go across this country, we are getting that level of confidence among the groups that we visit.
All right. Looking at the time, we just got the signal there. An interesting program indeed, and thank you so much for your time. Thank you for also explaining to the listeners that it wasn't your fault, that it was my fault, that I knew ahead of time.
Yes.
Don't be a stranger. But before you go, how do you convince people who are not in support of your style of leadership and who are basically not convinced that you are the man for the job? How do you convince them? How do you attempt to change their minds? Those who can vote, mind you, those who are delegates by now and December 11. Here's your opportunity.
Yes, Mark, it is in fact an opportunity for people to actually see me, an opportunity for them to actually face me eyeball to eyeball, and for them to feel the compassion that is me, that is Joseph Harmon, and the qualities that I bring as a leader of this party. I don't know that sometimes people characterize you because they don't know you better. But I think that as people see me, people see my team, people see the vision which I have for our party, and we explain this vision to them. Many persons are coming in wrong, Mark. Some persons say they don't want to hear from me. They don't even want to listen. They're listening from outside, and when they start to hear the conversations, they're creeping their way in. And they want to hear more. When my meetings sometimes are scheduled to last about an hour, 2 hours. It's still going on because people are hungry for information. And this is what I'm providing to them. They are now feeling the PNC. They are now feeling hope that there is some team, some group of people who can actually move our party forward into next elections and to get back into government. And I think that this is the message that is resonating with people who might say, okay, I'm supporting this person, I'm supporting that person. But you see, this vision that we have is a very strong selling point. This vision that we have. And then when people actually see, I have a PowerPoint presentation, which I do as we go to some of these meetings. And I trust that we can share it with you, Mark, sometime, so you can actually see the progress that we have made in the party, the work that Team Harmon has done in the party, while not being the leader or chairman or any of those high offices, while being a member of the party. And I think this is what energizes a lot of people. They say, well, if you can do it as just an ordinary member, I can do it too. And so I think that sort of transcends to the wider membership of our party. And that says that things can happen, we can get better, we can mobilize better, and we can get rid of the PPP under the leadership of Joseph Harmon and the team that he brings to the table.
All right. Sorry about that. We just had a change. Yeah, a change of studio here. Because you know that is exactly how we do things here. Look, Mr. Harmon, we really have to go, but I thank you so much for your time. One of the things that I hope that you would reconsider is to have a debate, because in a democracy in these times, it's very important. The first debate I heard, I think it was actually 1963 or 64 with Richard Milhouse Nixon and John F. Kennedy Jr. He was then a young senator. Debates are oftentimes, they're very important. And I've noticed that a lot of the viewers, a lot of people want a debate, not just for the delegates, because whoever becomes the leader, the next leader of the People's National Congress reform is set to possibly become the presidential candidate. So, for example, someone like me who is not a member of the PNCR, someone like Star Major, someone like Juan Anthony, and lots of other folks, they want to hear what are your views on some of maybe a lot of policies. They want to see you guys, to see your strength, to see your weaknesses, and so forth. And to have the three of you guys debate, to have you walk up on that stage or wherever, we can have the debate right here. Three of you guys right in the studio, to have you come up with your big star, right? And the others come in with their palm trees, and so forth and so on. Will you ever reconsider the possibility of a debate? Come on.
Mark, as I said to you, it is important. It's about timing. We have a lot of work to do on the ground.
Your microphone.
The delegates.
Your microphone. We can't hear you.
The delegates, they want to see us.
We still can't hear you. For some reason,
I want a debate done on the ground with the delegates. Right? If you want to ask me about my policy, you can question me about that. You can question in the PNC. You can question me, you can ask me any question about it, that what do I feel about this and what do I feel about that? But I don't believe that it will really serve the party at this point in time for there to be a general debate. I believe if the central executive considers it and considers it to be essential to the process, then certainly I'm prepared to debate anyone at any time. But at this point in time, I believe that time is better spent trying to get to the delegates and to convince them why they need to vote for Team Harmon.
All right, Mr. Joseph Harmon, like all of the other candidates, we want to wish you guys the best, and let us hope that this thing comes to an end and focus on the real fight. And the real fight is to ensure that that nation is rid of those corrupt individuals within the installed PPP regime. Yes. Mr. Harmon, let me give you a final thing. If there's something that you wanted to bring up that I didn't ask, here's your opportunity.
Mark, I want to say it again that I believe that I have a very strong team which I lead into these elections. I want to believe that the team comprising Royce Ilford as chairman, Annette Ferguson as vice chairman, Christopher Jones as vice chairman, Daniel Seram as treasurer, and my 15 executive members. In fact, I have a list of 23, from which persons can choose 15. But certainly, I want to say that that is the team that will take this party into the next election and will win. This is a team that will beat the PPP and get them out of office. This is what is important at this juncture of the PNC. It's about organizing ourselves, and this is the worst nightmare of the PPP, an organized, unified People's National Congress reform. And I believe that under the leadership of Joseph Harmon, and with the strong team that I have, that we can unite this party, make it that strong force that can go after the PPP, get them out of office, and return our country to a stable, decent place where rules are obeyed, where our constitution is supreme, and where justice prevails. A lot of injustice continues to take place, and I believe that what we are going to bring to this country, the people of this country, is a compassionate government that treats the rights of Guyanese as paramount, and not everybody else over Guyanese. Guyanese people are paramount. This is Guyana. This is the Guyana that we live. This is the Guyana that we love. And all the persons in diaspora, we will welcome them all the time to contribute to this development. But certainly the way things are going now, the PPP, they are actually miniaturizing that element of what Guyana is and making it a very small place just for a few people who become filthy rich, while the bulk of the Guyanese people cannot share in the benefits of our oil state, cannot share in the bounties that are Guyana. And this is what we intend to change, to make sure that good life, that good quality of life, that standard of living which the smallest Guyanese are entitled to, that we bring that to them. Guyana is too rich.
Mr. Joseph Frederick Harmon, thank you so much.
Has over $4 trillion oil sector, and still a lot of people can't see $4 Guyana out of it. So we got to change that. And I believe that with this team, we can start the process. This is the pathway. This is the pathway to success. This team into the PNC leadership, into government.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Joseph Frederick Harmon. Appreciate your time. I know you guys are very busy. All of the candidates seem to be very busy all over the place in that country, trying to get your delegates to vote or whomever. But thank you so much for your time this evening, sir. Glad
Thank
that
you very
you
much, Mark.
appeared.
And
Glad that you appeared.
thank you very much, and thank your listeners. And I'm glad that you're able to clear up that issue about non-appearance. I'm always ready, and I will come back again, Mark. Once you give me early notice, I will come back again to clarify any issues that might not have been clarified tonight, or some things that might have come up later. But certainly, I'll be willing and happy to do that.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Have a good night.
Thank you very much, and same to you and to your staff and your producers and the people in the back room. Tell them thank you very much for serving me coffee.
Thank you so much, sir. Appreciate it. Mr. Joseph Frederick Harmon. Appreciate it indeed. I know it's been a long night, a very, very long night. A very, very long night. I've noticed somebody already tagged me in something, Mary Clarence, whoever that person is, tagged me in a post, and this is kind of like misleading. Mary Clarence is saying, so Mark Benchcup asked Harmon, what about a debate with Aubrey? I've never asked that question at all, Mary Clarence. Stop it. I've never asked that question. My question basically was, what about a debate? Story done. What about a debate? I never specifically asked what about the debate with Aubrey, or what about a debate? What about a debate with the candidates? Mary Clarence, you're being naughty. Very naughty. Hey, thank all of you guys. Some folks are complaining. Some sent me some messages saying that they're blocked from commenting. I don't know. I just don't know. I just don't know what's the situation with that. But we will definitely look into that. But to all of you guys and to all of our guests as well, the Reverend Fred Davie, also veteran trade unionist Lincoln Lewis, and the leader of the opposition, Joseph Frederick Harmon. And to all of you guys, thank you all so much. I noticed whoever I don't know who this person is, but it could be someone with another account, but who knows, who cares? She is always, or he's always on the feed saying that I was too soft with Harmon. I don't know, maybe the next time we can trade some places. I don't know what you guys consider soft, or I don't know. What we try to do here on this show is to be respectful to our guests. We ask questions that are a matter of concern to people. We ask Mr. Joseph Harmon the questions a lot of you have on your mind. So I'm sorry that I was too soft, right? Good. All right, so I will be back tomorrow, same place, same time, right here. All of the candidates have been given free time on Bench Up Radio. Free time, all of the candidates. There is no discrimination. And when I say all of the candidates, I mean those who are running for the leadership. They have 2 hours of free time on Bench Up Radio. So all of them, no one is excluded. Until tomorrow, same place, same time. Somebody else has just messaged me to say that they watch every night, but they just can't comment. I just don't know. All right. So to all of you, thank you so much. I watched an interesting program this afternoon with the small man, Otto Martin, and another star major, that is. I don't know if he's related to Mr. Joseph Harmon. Star major, right? And it's oftentimes good to listen to what those guys, the conversation is. You get a feel as to what the ordinary folks are saying. So I just want to say good job, Otto Martin, the small man, and the gentleman that he had on, Star Major. Good evening to all of you. And to those of you who are on the ground listening to us, thank you all so much. We will be back tomorrow, same place, same time. However, this evening, while you go to bed, pray for this guy. Just pray for him. And thanks to those lawyers who went out there to his rescue. Darren Wade, thank you so much. Senior Counsel Roysdale Ford, thank you so much as well. And shame and disgrace to the PPPC. Shame and disgrace to those political vagabonds in the PPPC. We will be back tomorrow again, same place, same time. And we leave this here for those vagabonds in the PPP. God bless you all, though.
What is the difference between the ordinary thief and a political thief? Number one, the ordinary thief steals your money, your bag, your watch, and your jewelry, isn't it? But the political thief steals your future, your career, your education, your health, and your business. Number two, the hilarious part is that the ordinary thief will choose whom to rob. But you are the one who choose the political thief to rob you. Because we choose them. We vote them. We blindly say we are not blind. Who is deceiving who? The ridiculous part of the whole issue is that we will fight to defend and protect our belongings from the ordinary thief. Is it not? But we fight each other to defend and protect the political thief. Is that not what we do? Thugs will be fighting themselves to protect those that are stealing our career, stealing our joy, stealing our health, stealing our success. What a shame. What a travesty. It calls for us to think and think deep. The stage we are in as a country is not a stage where you become an onlooker. You have become an onlooker for too long. You must get ready to put your hands to the plow and be part of the process. It's not just about PVC, carry PVC. You must be in the kitchen where it is being determined. You must be there where the decisions are being made. If we are there in our numbers, they cannot outnumber us. But you leave it aloof. Oh, no, it's too dirty. It's a dirty game. And then the dirty guy is getting to the game of play. And you are there not showing up. And when they begin to make the decisions, you will know whether it's a dirty game or not. The result is always dirty on yours. Dirty on your health. Dirty on your business. Dirty on your success and your career. I hope that is stirring up something in you.